Today's conversation was quite, what do you call it? I got an idea. Yes, my very good friend was coming on a visit in Copenhagen. And I hadn't told him we're doing podcast. I didn't actually really know before yesterday evening. And then I went in and the studio was free. And Yazz and I, we know each other from way back in the UK. And you were actually a guest on the show back in the pandemic where we talked food delivery.
Yeah,
and when that was really... If you're not on that, you were out of business, in principle. That was when there was no other ways to serve customers at home, and everybody was doing it. And that was like everybody was trying to crack that thing, and Deliveroo and Just Eat just boomed in a way you never seen before. And lots have happened since.
Yeah.
And we sat down, talked a bit about what can we actually add of, as Jess said it very well, we need to make sure we add value to the guests, or the both the guests, but also the people listening, the audience, of course. So we come up with a couple of talking points, and I'm sure in these there's lots of value. So it's a bit like what we have learned. And we started actually the day out in hospitality. We met at Reffen, which is the street food place. Copenhagen Street Food is called as well.
Yeah.
Which has also evolved since you were here last time. It's moved location as well. And it's probably, I think you said it very nice way. It's remained the old style street food, like you originally thought about it, and when you went to East London or you went to Borough Market, that was actually how it still operates a lot out there. Lots of maybe not so brand focused as you would see, and maybe could be commercialized more. But there's less. I think there's less of that commercialized street food. It's a bit more grassroots still here, and there's lots of restaurants that comes out of that still. Yeah, which is quite an interesting way of joining, and that was also the way for Honest Burger and Pizza Pilgrim and many brands within the UK. No, but enough of that. Welcome to the show, Jess. And
thank you, Michael. It's really good to be back in the seat after many years of doing that original podcast during the pandemic, where we spoke extensively about dark kitchens and the need and how that world operated. God, it feels like a million years ago since we had. Thank you for the invitation again for being on the show, albeit with no preparation. I arrived very early hours of this morning, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have a day with Michael. And then you sprung it on me, goes to me, you got an hour's podcast to do. And I was like, okay, bring it on. It's a good thing that I enjoy talking. So absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Also another thing is that Jess is an operator of heart and like certain levels of control. And I'm probably a bit more wild. I'm also an operator of heart, but I'm probably a bit more, I can do without a plan. I'll put one together if I need to. But there's a couple of subjects we talked about, and I think we should start out with, I think there's a really interesting thing we talked about this morning, and then we will go maybe a bit more big picture on some things, and we'd like to talk about the state of hospitality, UAE, because of the conflict and the wars going on down there. And I think lots of people think about what's going to happen down there. And then we're going to talk a bit about the state of UK hospitality. I follow things, even though I'm here and I'm back often, you can see that struggle. Which you actually noticed as soon as you were here, like, there's a lot going on,
Yes.
And I think they have to work hard for their money here. I believe that, and I'm also involved myself. But it still feels easier than what I noticed in the UK, because, it feels like the society and government supports the industry. Then we talk a bit about, there's going to be, of course, a bit of talk about AI. We have to look at that. We talked about lost art of hospitality. And then we talked a bit about maybe, are we actually understanding Gen Zs properly as well? And we'll see if we get around all of it. But then I think we should start with one that's about founders. Because there's a lot of guests on the show that's the founders of their business. And I meet a lot of these founders. And they have this business they want to build, And we talked a bit about, I've been, what do you call it, victim of this myself, you can call it so, where you build this business with passion, you want to do the right thing, you commit to people invest money in you, and then it just becomes way too emotional because the business becomes emotional instead of when it's a healthy time to stop, or when it's time to think about your exit, when it's time to find out how do we actually build that business that has that valuation I'm dreaming of. So, and without me be frustrated when it doesn't happen straight away, actually seeing it as a business, as a thing. And we'd had multiple conversations. I had them with myself and with others as well. And I thought it was a really interesting place to start, and how you see that plays out when you meet founders, because what you do, you advise typical founder-led businesses that want to grow. They want, with your experience from Nando's and so on, they want to grow into potentially the next Nando's. And there's not many Nando's or McDonald's, but they maybe want to grow into something, the Pizza Pilgrims, or that's maybe the first step and get to that level, but then, might do a really healthy business maybe. And many of them, funny enough, and that's the last thing, and then we can jump into what your view on is, really believe they want to be in that business for the rest of their life when you meet them. And I was thinking, wow, that would be lovely if you can get to that. If you really are that, good and lucky to be there all the way, Because when you then think through and when you look back, some of those have said that they actually at some point have to leave for multiple reasons. Investor demands, family reasons, whatever it is, they have to leave. But then they plan for that. So that's how they plan. They just throw themselves into every day, and that's beautiful in some kind of way. But it might be a smarter way that would be a bit more not hard on them or their mental health, at least.
100%. I think it's, when we were coming up with this list of topics that we wanted to discuss, I think this is really important. I do this day in, day out. I've been doing it for 15 years, where I help companies scale and grow. And the most common denominator which I find amongst founders of the business is a vast majority of them are emotionally attached to the business, which in essence is it's a good thing in the beginning, because they put their heart, soul, love, sweat, blood, tears and everything to build the brand up, to build it to a level. Unfortunately, a lot of them carry that emotion as the company starts growing. And you hear this terminology all the time. Oh, it's my baby, and I've got to nurture it and so forth. A large part of my job and what I do with founders is to detach them from the emotional attachment that they have with their business. Because principally, as a founder, you have this dream, and whatever that dream looks like. Some are quite switched on. They know their exit. They want to set it up so they can either flip the company or sell it or get an acquisition. Some of the work I do is simply to detach them from that emotion. One of the first things that I advise founders is that how do you look at your company? You started off self-employed. You then go on to being a business owner. And then you become a company owner. And then you become essentially, to the next level. A lot of founders are still in the mentality of being self-employed. And this is where they make that crucial mistake. Once they shake that off, they then start treating their business as a commercial entity, because the reason why you got into business, principally why we're there, is to make money, is the bottom line. If you're not making the bottom line, you should not be in business. And it's as black and white as that. Some people don't have any aspirations to grow. They're quite happy taking it over, a little side hustle and so forth, which is great if you've got a full-time job and it's also ticking that over a little bit. But those people who aspire to be the Pizza Pilgrims or the Black Sheeps or the Blank Streets, and they read about it and they watch the YouTubes and all of that stuff, what they fail to understand is those guys had the commercial awareness from day one. So principally when it comes to founders, a large amount of my time is to disassemble that emotion and to come away from it.
And It's really interesting because I think some of them might even didn't know they had that, but they very early on when they can see the traction, and they can see that was one side, or two sides, three sides, and the magic continues, and growth is everywhere, then that's where they might going to think, okay, well, I can actually build this to something really significant, and I think some of them actually already clicks it with side number one,
I think on that 100%, because a lot of people sort of, they start multiplying, they get into site 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But what you often find is those founders that are emotionally attached are the same founders when they've got 15 sites. They've got no operations, they've got no HR, they've got no marketing. They've got basically not outsourcing anything. And they're the same founders who are running around their sites, changing light bulbs and fixing broken pipes and stuff like that.
They still operate as a self-employed,
Correct. But they're telling the rest of the world that, hey, I've got a company and I've got 10 sites, and, and it's the vanity of having a brand. But that brand itself, is, it perhaps the bottom line by that point, if the founder is heavily involved, is running effectively, could be, not loss making. The issue then comes down to is, by that stage, if the founder wants to expand and grow their business, they haven't brought in the expertise to enable to do it. So at a earlier stage in the growth, did they arrange for their supply chain to be efficient, so they take the energy away from them having to fulfill themselves that supply chain? Same with the marketing, same with the HR and everything else. So yes, the initial investment and the initial cost is high. However, if your aspiration is to have 20x, 30x sites over a certain period of time, you need to start investing much, much earlier into your business. The key to that is effective cash flow, and really understanding what cash flow is. A lot of founders, they come into the business as ex-employees, like a lot of us, where we've all been employees at one stage. But a lot of these guys, they come in with no business acumen, and they don't simply understand the values of, the values. They don't understand the actual method of a cash flow. And once they understand the method of a cash flow and having that effective, that then helps them sustain a business. A lot of founders still wear the employee hat for many years, and they still want to have their 2 weeks holiday a year. They still want to, sick days and this and that. And I often question to say, well, you're just self-employed. You might as well be a window cleaner or ice cream van man or something of that effect, because they're all self-employed. So I think in terms of answer to your question, it's the emotional detachment is a big one. As soon as you put your commercial hat on, everything starts opening. The biggest thing in business, as we both know, Michael, is time. Time is the most important commodity. And a lot of people waste time in the real mundane things. Like the example I gave you was like, hey, site number 6, we need to sort out the light bulbs, or the aircon's not working. And they're faffing about trying to, sort that out themselves. And they don't realize that they're wasting time, where they can use that time effectively in strategizing an effective vision for their growth.
Oh, like a couple of things I picked up from what you said. Like the first one was, I'm just going to make a note here, else we forget. The first one was that thing. Then you come into a business, or you grow within a business. And I had interviewed Tom James, the MD of Bills, recently. It's coming out soon, but he talked about that you come from a discipline, he came in as an operator for an operations, into the MD role, where things we talked about, what did it actually mean? And then he found out actually I needed to understand other areas of the business much more, And the same will be when you start a business. You come in with some kind of background. You come from sales, marketing, finance. Lots of example people coming from finance. They're probably a bit more on the numbers and think about profitability and cash flow as a strength. But then there's the whole, how do you actually manage people? How do you train people? All those things you don't learn in business school, that the operator would have. So there's actually also acknowledging that it's not just the business has to stand on its own legs. And one of the things I learned some years about maybe more than a decade ago, I understood at some point in that it's actually the ability that what gives the value of the business in the end. It's not you as the founder. You as the founder have to build the systems that really gives value now. And in a tight market where we talked a bit about investment earlier as well, where investment is very difficult to get the right multiples for your value. You said, what is the value of this business? Having these things going in early, starting building these systems and getting the people on board to do that, supply chain, operation system, communication system, whatever it is that actually holds your business. Yeah. So you can say, this is the business. Here are my 24 systems to support that. This is what we have here. This is what we have. This is why we never make mistakes here. And actually you can show that. When you think about the value of McDonald's, it's not because, of course, it's great to have lots of sales that has some kind of value, but they couldn't have that sales if they didn't have their business systems in place. They have 14 systems that's in place, and they are nurtured and cared for. That's where the value of business is. Any big business, that's what they do. That's why they look boring from the outside, because they just do the same again and again and again. And I think there also has to be a love of that. And when you're the entrepreneur, you don't have love for that. Yeah. That's not why you started the business. You started the business to get some early traction, be out there, promoting, building the brand, all the really important bit, but actually there's a very important bit where you really get paid the last 40% of the huge value, in my view. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you made a very valid point there, because if you look at the big boys, your Domino's, your McDonald's and Subways and so forth, their vision from day one was always being consistent, because consistent and that magic word that you mentioned, which is discipline. And absolutely kudos to Tom at Bill's, because he's done an amazing job over the past few years. I noticed Bill's has had a positive transformation. Discipline and consistency is what propels a business in the right direction. Yeah. And I think, those businesses that fail are inconsistent, and they don't have discipline. And discipline starts with the founder. Yeah. A lot of my work, Michael, is certainly installing discipline. Sometimes it's like dealing with a kindergarten. With some of the clients that I work with, because they themselves don't have the discipline that is required to get them to a level where they are ready to scale and grow. And you'll be surprised the partners which I've had over the years on the outside, extremely, extremely well-run companies. But behind the scenes, the discipline is not there. But listen, we're a human-led business. We are in the game of hospitality. People will always be first. And it's the people that you work on to make an effective business run well. The other thing I think a lot of founders are guilty of, Michael, is they really don't know what their exit is. And they never talk about the exit. A lot of people think exit is simply just, selling a business or getting bought out or whatever. That's part of it. I usually have those conversations with companies to say, okay, what is your exit? 8 times out of 10, they don't know. They don't know. And I'm talking about companies that are 10, 15 sites deep. They may have an idea of, I've got to sell it for 30 million quid, 40 million quid, or whatever it may be. Okay, that's fine. What have you done to set that up? Some people don't want that. Some people want to leave it for their children, and some people want to, have it taken over. Always start with an exit, whether that is yourself leaving the business, handing it over, selling it, acquisition, blah, 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 whatever it could be, even an IPO, if you get that big. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you'd be surprised how many people just don't have an exit plan at all.
What do you see when people concretely make that shift, from the emotion to this is I'm building a Formula One car. Yeah. Okay. I'm building this freedom thing first. I don't want to have a boss. That's typically what happens first. Then you have to do the huge leap to creating the Formula One thing that can be sold to X time, 5 times the value of the bottom line or the top line or wherever you're lucky to get your valuation from. What is the typical thing that happens when they do that, and what do they do? Yeah,
they start doing one thing very well, which are 2 things actually: implementing self-leadership and becoming a leader within their business. Because until that moment, they are simply self-employed workers within their own business. They might as well just be stayed as salary people.
Yeah.
So until they start implementing leadership, they will not move on. And leadership, and again, I've had those conversations. Many people think leadership is, being the boss in an office and you're telling people what to do. No, come on. Both myself and you know what effective leadership is. We've been doing it for decades. Leadership comes in all different shapes and forms. And you have to start with yourself. If you can't lead yourself in a way that your company is getting ready for an exit, there is absolutely no way you can lead your team, which then decapitates you into moving forward to scale and grow your company. So I think that is the moment that people realize it's like, okay, I need to focus on the leadership aspect. As soon as they start doing that, the clarity becomes there in their focus to understand, okay, I'm leading myself, which then enables me to then lead others around me, stakeholders, partners, employees, shareholders. Until that moment, they are simply beckoned for all those people around there. They're working for their employees, they're working for the stakeholders and the partners. And it's like, no. It doesn't work that way. Starts with you. Number 1 rule in business, Michael, always protect yourself. Number 1 rule in business. And a lot of people don't do that because they end up, again, the emotion, they end up protecting, the employee, everything else. Of course, the team will always be there and you need the people around you. However, it is all about driving yourself forward first in order to look after your team.
Yeah. And when you say look after yourself, what do you specifically think about that? Is that your health? And that's probably one thing, but is there more string to that? So
good question. So I always believe that, a successful person, we live in this day and age where we have information at our fingertips.
Yeah.
A lot of people aspire to the Elon Musks of the world, for example. We can use him as an example. Yeah. But that aspiration and the people that they aspire to, it comes from those individual people who have a very, very controlled, centered self-discipline. It always starts outside of your business and outside of your work. If you are not disciplined in your life, there is no way you're going to be super disciplined in business. I'm not saying you've got to be the perfect person or the perfect human or the partner or whatever it is. There has to be some form of discipline. So usually, when I'm speaking with my partners, I ask what their personal life is like. Usually in business, we never discuss that. I go straight in, Michael, and I ask them, okay, what's your family setup like? How is your relationship? How is your marriage? Are you, single? What are you doing? How do you socialize? Where do you travel? Are you buying property? Are you happy renting? Look, I really get to the nitty and gritty. Some people find that very, very awkward to answer. But for me, it's reading between the lines. Because if I start sniffing that they are not so disciplined in their personal lives, they probably need to work on that first before they start fulfilling that business aspiration that they have. Because if they're not disciplined outside of work, in the business world, certainly when things start getting serious, for example, raising investment or talking to other shareholders and other things like that.
Dealing with investors,
Correct. Those guys will definitely want to know what their personal setup is. So again, it's working on your personal side of your life.
And super interesting. because we all will be able to say we didn't judge that person correctly, because we were not afraid of asking those things. And if we're in business, it should be okay of having everything on the table, because everybody say, oh, I want to be transparent. But then also you have no fear about, that. And it's really interesting question. I'm now starting asking both people I want to do business with, but also people I would employ on a very important, critical role. So like 2 questions. What do you spend your first 2 hours of the day on?
Okay.
Because that's telling me a lot about people's discipline.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they need to do cold showers and push-ups and all kind of things. I do some things I don't think other people should do if they don't think that gives them energy.
Yeah.
But I have my rituals. I'm looking for rituals. Is the day that important to you? Time.
Yep.
That you prepare yourself for that to get the most of it. And maybe it's spending time with your children, because you want that, that when you hit 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, business starts. Therefore, if you don't spend time and drop your kids off, that means for me discipline as well. So discipline is not just push-ups and reading 100 books a week, drinking a lot of matcha tea, whatever it is. And we're all humans, so we all have our things. I love food, so I probably eat sometimes too much food or indulge, but I know I need to be aware of that. So it's like, I know when I'm stressed, I will definitely go and indulge myself in food. Not unhealthy food, but just a lot of food.
You can get away with it, Michael. Look at you, mate. You're the slimmest man I've ever known. Yeah, exactly. You're the fittest guy I know at your age.
But again, it's also the discipline, because I know my health. If my health goes, my business and my activity goes. And then I asked the other question, is that why and did you start this? What pain did you take you there?
Yeah.
And there's always a pain that takes you. That could be a job. It could be that you saw your mom and dad went bankrupt.
Exactly.
And you don't want that to happen. So having a job might not be enough to have enough and being comfortable in life.
Yeah.
And figuring out those stories, what really drives them below, also tells me if they gonna have the staying power, the resistance and the resilience when it gets tough. But it will always get tough. Most of the times it's tough. It's
absolutely
very rarely easy. It's very short periods where just the money flows in from everywhere and it's just easy. I know you hear about unicorn businesses, but there's very few of them, especially in food and hospitality at least. They're all graft. Super interesting. Any other thoughts around founders and emotions in their business? Something you should check in on?
I think you touched on 2 really good points just now. One, the mental capacity. I think that is really important. We are surrounded and inundated with this whole hustle culture that's been exponentially blown up in our faces over the years.
Social media, content,
You know what I mean? Right. It's like, the pressure to be competitive 24/7. It's not okay to be burnt out, and, the hustle, you've got to be constantly hustling. But, I think the competitive nature, has impacted people and their mental health. Almost that a lot of the founders have had fantastic careers. They feel burnt out. They enter the world of hospitality thinking, almost romanticizing what hospitality is, that, the restaurant and it's lovely and ha 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 and he on a Saturday night with your customers. The reality, as we both know, is very different. And a lot of those guys then wish they were back in their corporate jobs because they can't hack it. So I think the mental health aspect, is very important. And it's got to be addressed in the right way. And exactly your point as well, Michael, is any historical issues, the reasons why they're getting into business has to be addressed first. If it's to do with real, it'll be controversial here, but if it's to do with real selfish beliefs or competitiveness against a family member or to show society or whatever it may be, I think that can really fall on its head if they're not careful. The second point, is the magic R word that you said, which is rituals. You know, we as a human species from the day of dawn have always been captivated by rituals.
Yeah.
And rituals is something which is part of our DNA. And we enjoy that, whether it's making bed in the morning or whether it's weddings or religious ceremonies or whatever it could be. But we also have rituals in hospitality, our daily team briefs, our managers' meetings, our all of that.
Yeah.
They're all rituals at the end of the day. Yes, there is a job requirement, a specification, all the rest of it. I think if people understand by bringing in the human element into hospitality, the success will be then a byproduct. You know, the revenue, the turnover, and the bottom line, all that comes in. You always wear that commercial hat, but never forget that humanness, the human touch that is always needed, because we are in the business of hospitality.
If the word MMB has ever crossed your mind, whether you thought about listing your home while you're away, or you got a property sitting there, or you're already hosting and starting to feel the weight of it, this one is for you. Here's what nobody really tells you before you start. Hosting sounds simple. You list your space, guest book, you collect the income. But somewhere between managing 3 different platforms, responding to messages at ad hours, adjusting your prices, and chasing calendar updates is stop feeling like income and start feeling like a second job. Logify is what lots of hosts wish they found sooner. Everything lives in one place. Your bookings are synced across Airbnb, Booking.com, and Vrbo. The rest, your guest communication and your own direct booking website so guests can come to you directly. They're also launching an AI assistant this summer that handles your guest message automatically so the whole operation can actually run in the background. For Maverick listeners, there's a special offer running until the 13th of July. 60% off on ultimate and professional yearly and bi-yearly plans with the code Mavericks60. The code and the link for the website will be in the show notes. Back to today's guest. Yeah, and it's actually, I was reading, would be wrong, but I'm on my commute every day. Now I had to change my rituals actually in the morning. So one other thing, I listen to books. I read, I still always have a book with me. Actually, I don't have one today. I took it out this morning. But I listen, and I'm re-listening to actually the book that is actually one of the big reasons why this podcast is, because I got curious to what the best of the best do. Yeah. And it's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I'm listening, I've just been listening to this part of the book that talks about the disciplines with the headshot concept. And the headshot concept in his book is that, you know, you have to find out what can I become the best at in the world? How do I make sure that I am passionate enough to become the best of that? And it really, the really important bit, I'm just going to take it a bit back, is what I can become. That's your job to find out. You might not be doing what you can be when you run a business. You might find out you can become better at something else.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, and you said it as well, how can I make sure I'm going to make enough money of that? If those 3 circles that Venn diagram comes together, then you need to have the, and what do you call it? Can't even say it. Like you have to be unapologetically disciplined of what's going to make that happen in your business. Yeah. And you have to find out there's some pillars. It could be, and they often comes down to you have to be consistent about these. And that could be quality, service, and cleanliness. That McDonald's pillars, and value for money. That's the 4th pillar. And if you take care of those 4 pillars, your business will grow and then you will create value. And you build all your systems around that, and you're fanatical about it. That's the way you hold meetings. This is how you do your daily briefings. That everything is baked into this. So you ask, what are we doing? How is there anything issues with quality today? Is there any issues with service today? Is there any issues with cleanliness? If you haven't delivered that, then you go back and then you have to love repeating that. And actually, I think lots of founders find it very hard to fall in love with that. And we talked a bit about that. I mean, that discipline and being fanatical about it. Like in a, really like people think you are insane. Yeah. And I can remember I had bosses where I sometimes things, and especially with my first McDonald's franchisee, he was fanatical about the elements of QSR. And then there was one thing in the product. He was, of course, fanatical about quality all the way around, but it was like the fries, don't do the fries wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you sold them. He followed the book, the manuscript, and that's why when McDonald's franchisees really fall in love, and you've been in a number of franchisees as well, that's why it's so successful, because it's written down and everybody's fanatical about it,
Exactly.
Oh, I don't want a business like that. But if you want to have an exit like that, that's probably, and you would see as well, even in the Shoom and Pizza Pilgrims and Honest Burger, from the outside, it looks like it's cozy, but I'm sure Sticks and Sushi is a great example, as well. But they're fanatical about, and Sticks and Sushi and come very good example, knife skills,
Yes.
You're not allowed to cut sushi if you haven't passed that exam, and they're fanatical about it. And they have discipline and rituals around that. And when you pass, you get that beautiful knife. So I think it's so interesting. Actually, you have to fall in love with some really boring stuff, as a founder.
Exactly. 100%. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Michael. It all comes back to discipline, and if it's written, it's replicated, and then consistency follows. And I think on that, it's so important that founders understand that. I think if you look at certainly my experience, where I've been on both sides of the fence as a franchisee for Papa John's and also a franchisor for a bakery chain here in the UK. It was interesting how franchisees thought and still do, that they almost want everything to be given to them because it's written. It's almost they've been handed the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. For them to receive and then follow it as a script to replicate their business. And again, it comes down back to that ritual world, that it's almost like a religion, and a vast majority of people want to be dictated to. McDonald's is just the most amazing example of that. The consistency of their fry, pretty much anywhere in the world, will be identical because they are absolutely to the T. They have replicated that. And many franchisors have not been able to do it, including, for example, Domino's or a Subway. They're very inconsistent in different markets. As you know, I travel extensively for my business, and if I'm trying different products, you notice the difference. KFC is actually a really bad culprit for that. KFC is not the same tastes, for example, in the UK, in the Middle East, and even in the Far East, are very different products. McDonald's, me and you can go to Hong Kong tomorrow and we would have the same McDonald's.
Yeah, still a Big Mac,
Yeah, absolutely. It's still a Big Mac. So I think on that level, look, there's a lot of learnings from that. And I think just my final point on what we spoke about this segment is, as a founder, when they enter the world of business, what they really want is to become financially free and, riches beyond their wildest dreams. That, in my eyes, is never true wealth. I think true wealth is the ability to have time at your disposal. And I think a lot of founders do not understand that. A lot of founders want the Range Rovers, the Rolexes, and that sort of lifestyle that they believe and what they see the riches. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that around. So for me, part of my education for founders is focus on driving your company so you have more and more time. And once you understand that, and that comes down to that leadership, once you understand that, everything else is just like a byproduct. The cars, the houses, this, that, whatever. So,
And it's really interesting because that's the question about what is enough,
Correct.
Well, not what the exit amount is. What is enough for you to get time on your hands? Because, again, that's all about down to your means, So, choice of car, choice of watch, choice of how you want to live, the home, to the where you want to live, and all those things, exactly. But actually, if you could set enough goals, you might get to that point very quickly. And also when you get to that point, you are less stressed about it in a way. And then therefore I also think you take better thinking time for the business as you evolve it. Like, it's quite interesting. Ari Weinswijk from Singermans, I always talk about him on the podcast, but it's very interesting. I think he very quickly passed that point where there was enough, where it actually became about improving the community. So suddenly he went from, I need a business to survive, I'm standing behind the counter and selling sandwiches, to now he is the CEO of a group of businesses with partners that takes care of each business area. And he's actually still live in the same place, like he said, that farm. I'm not saying this, like, it sounds a bit like Warren Buffett, but it's very interesting because he had a thought about what was enough in his life. Like, so if he can write every morning, write and do podcast interview and educate people about doing business with purpose and so on, that's actually more worth to him than having a bigger car. So he has his farm and he has his dogs and he can go running every afternoon. So he already said, very quickly, I was actually already there. I could buy my farm and I could, so I actually didn't have that pressure, which was very interesting, that because then he knew he hit the enough.
Yeah.
And therefore he built a very different business. Yeah. Then this is a self-sustained business. There's no exit. They are in an exit plan now, but the exit plan is that the employees are going to buy the business.
Yep.
Because they don't want to sell to Amazon. They have a huge online e-commerce business that sells food across the US.
Yep.
And that's happening. They're transferring that business in now. So that was the most important for him to him. And he has enough, more than enough probably. But he wants to have time to do those things. It's more about what I want to do when I don't sell and change light bulbs and make sandwiches. Yeah,
exactly that, because they've understood the value of time.
Yeah,
if they've understood two things actually, Michael. They've understood the value of time, and they've also understood that what brings them peace, because you reach a certain point in your life and in your business journey where your peace is more important than chasing the dream.
Yeah.
I think that probably comes with age.
Yeah.
Me and you are both of a certain generation, certain age.
I think we are into the peace thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. It's really interesting. Yeah. 10 years ago, I would probably thought very differently about it. Yeah.
Jesus. 10 years ago, we were different. We were all about hunger and hunting as much as we can.
Yeah.
But I think the peace is the big one. So, once you're the master of your time, peace comes there, and then, everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I admire, you mentioned Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett lives in the same house.
Yeah.
For the past 50 years. He drives the same car for the past 20 years. Yeah, some kind of Honda Civic or something like that, which really astonished me when I read that. The man is not about showy wealth.
He goes to McDonald's every day and buy a coffee and a Egg McMuffin, I think it is. And he pays with cash.
Yeah.
He has in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
He pays with cash. Yeah.
Exactly. And the man is probably McDonald's most, one of their highest shareholders. I mean, the guy is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
And of course, not everybody can be Warren Buffett, so you need to find your own recipe and rituals and disciplines around these things, because you can't become
the D word, Michael. The D word. Yeah. Exactly that.
Well, that we got really deep on that one. Yeah, that was really good. So that also brings me to when you build the business. Some founders actually comes into it. I was thinking about that with the dream of building this hospitality business where they're going to gather people and give them great experiences and make them richer than feeling richer when they come in the door and they leave again.
Yeah.
And some really succeed with it and others have a very good start and then it flattens out.
Yeah.
Well, as I like this talk about in our industry, and I think it's really been very much when in the UK, but also here in Denmark, we're not gotta probably put my neck out now. But I think some places I felt it, but I think that's the mixture of different cultures coming in. But we're losing that art of being hospitable, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your view is it like, but we almost a human being at all this technology, we forget to help each other, or being hospitable and seeing others. Oh, there's somebody coming there, they need a bit of space, or move on. And there's almost not time for that because we are in that hustle mode and we consume because we get information all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. I think when it comes to the art of hospitality. And that's exactly what it is. It is an artistic form. The art of hospitality is something that was embraced for millennia. The Japanese put it really well. The Japanese call it onotanashi, which is essentially means the art of hospitality, and we can learn so much from that. And I've never been to Japan, but I've read extensively about Japan and their culture and what they do and how they embrace that term into their daily rituals. Little things like when you land in Narita Airport, for example, in Tokyo, and you're waiting for your bags, that there are people employed specifically to put the baggage that's on the baggage belt in the correct position that allows you to pick it up with the handle facing you. Never seen that. But I've never seen it in Dubai, for example. No. And Dubai is known for, all kinds of weird stuff. And it's just little things like that. So the essence of hospitality, you are right, Michael, we have almost forgotten that. Hospitality has been replaced with transactional interactions, and that's what it is now.
And maybe with little sorts of service, because service.
I'm just trying to think. I've received some genuine service recently. I received some great service in recent countries that I've traveled to. So, for example, I was in Armenia recently. Some amazing service I received there in restaurants. I was in Belarus recently, and it was almost like me being in the UK 30 years ago, very young Gen Z people employed in restaurants. And they were so passionate about hospitality. It almost brought a tear to my eye. It was like, wow, these are the glory days, what I remember what hospitality was. Now it's become very much, here's your kiosk screen, or here's a QR code, and then away you go. There are some companies, turning that around, and they're embracing that hospitality. But I think I almost feel that we need to educate what real hospitality is about. Again, technology hasn't helped that, and I think a lot of our generation that we have, particularly the younger millennials and borderline Gen Zs, their social interaction is very much lower. Yet they play an important part, which I know we'll talk about later on.
But we can also connect it to this subject, because I think because is it actually important to them? That's probably the question.
Exactly. Look, I think when it comes to hospitality, I'm racking my brains out while I'm thinking about this. Like in the UK, where is that?
I call it like executional. Like almost like you need to. You hear you get your product. You get your. You hopefully get a clean table to sit at, but it's not like focusing on, and it's not like you need to make me feel any special, but I just don't think people are in the headspace of, and also people sometimes don't want to receive it, which is quite interesting. But then when you buy an event, which I'm in a bit involved in the last year, you can see you want all that. You want to have a special relationship with the place, and I've seen some be very successful, and then people not being so successful. And some of them might be on schedule and doing it everything by the book and the rundown for an event. But actually there was no they just got maybe 7 out of 10. But another one, there was things going wrong. The timing with the food and so on. But the person that's been on was really good at, by personal, I didn't say maybe born like that, maybe influenced like that by their parents, but very good at how to make people feel, because they like to invest in relationship, and it's important for them. And I'm not saying But again, you can train that. That's not like, we're not born with that. I didn't learn how to have conversations with people. I was actually quite shy when I was younger, and I can see it in my son now as well. So you need to learn how you build relationship with people.
Yeah.
And see the value in that, and actually believing. I know you're very relationship based as well when you do business. Actually believing that is the core thing, and I think we've been now believe it's about transactions in the industry instead of about building relationship with our community. Like talking about Singermans again, huge strong relationship tie with their customers and so on. They have people that goes on holiday to Ann Arbor from the West Coast, into the middle of no man's land, in Michigan, to go, and every year they spend a week around Michigan because they're gonna go and visit Singermans. That's a holiday. That's not like. But again, that shows you that I think we lost some of that. Where before you always went to your local neighborhood restaurants where you had the Italian waiter or whatever you had that was serving me, and I think it's not something you can systemize yourself out of. It's also like living that out as a business owner, I guess. Like you have to encompass that in every area of life,
100%, Michael. I think on that one exactly, I think you made a valid point there. It's almost not natural anymore. It's people are just not expected to give that unconditional hospitality, which is
because you have to give your energy and time, and that's my time is not for free, and
it's exactly that. And I think we just live in a very selfish world nowadays, where people are just out for themselves and not really, caring for anybody. Unfortunately, we see that with a lot of the social media stuff out there, and unfortunately, a lot of the geopolitics that are happening across the world at the moment, it's a very selfish place. It's fair to say at the moment. And I think hospitality, perhaps like other industries, everyone has become so self-centered that they're forgetting the actual base human thing, which is what you said, which is building relationships. I'm a strong believer in building relationships, always have done. I guess that comes from, hospitality. That also comes from having businesses in different parts of the world. Middle East, for example, where I have my company's based out in Dubai. There, it's all about relationships and hospitality, even before some kind of deal ever gets spoken about. You're expected to have at least a couple of meetings talking about everything except business. Really building a relationship, understanding family, their children, travel, this, that, everything. Get invited to homes and stuff, having dinner, and then business comes much later, and of which the business is always, I like you, yes, shake hands and off you go. And I think it's that which has been taken away from certainly the West. When we look at the UK, the States, Western Europe, and it's a shame. It's a shame. I think if we start embracing a lot more love within hospitality, I think that we'll be in a good place.
And I asked a question before when we didn't go down, but like Jen said, like the new generation, also new customers, new employees, but we just ducktail the art of hospitality. Is that actually important to them to feel that because sometimes you feel that generation maybe don't connect, or they find it very hard to have a phone conversation, and actually being hospitable to them, actually you feel it doesn't have that value because they almost feel that, this is really awkward. This strange man is talking to me. Like, and it's very interesting. He asked me like personal questions, like what do he want? I don't know. Do they actually value that? Is that actually what when they go into a hotel or restaurant business, is that actually what they value? I don't know. And that's why I'm asking, like, because are we actually just talking about something that's dying because there's nobody really wants it, and that's how it is?
I think, it's a really good question. we mentioned, we sort of briefly touched on this earlier on today. I'm a great believer in Gen Z. I guess my counter fellow Generation X people that we are, and the baby boomers as well. I think there's a huge disconnect. I think for a long time, the baby boomers and the Gen X, we just took it for granted in the world of hospitality that, doors are open, people will come in, fill restaurants, fill QSR, and away you go. The millennials came in, disrupted a new way of thinking. But the Gen Z, my God, what a generation they are. They are so influential to hospitality globally. Yeah. Not even a UK thing, not even a Middle Eastern thing. Globally, they've got such power. However, they know that. And that's really interesting. They are so in tune with themselves and their environment. They're almost like self-leaders. You'd speak to a Gen Z.
Very, very articulate, yeah.
Extremely. They are so in tune with all things sustainability, self-care, mental health. They're also in self-control of their emotions, their mental health. They are extremely aware, and that translates into their consumer behaviors.
Yeah.
So when they're out in hospitality, it's like, okay, so they are extremely choosy in where they interact with and who they become loyal to and all the rest of it. I deliberately surround myself with Gen Zs to learn from them on a very, very frequent basis. I am blessed to have 3 Gen Z daughters that you know very well, Michael. And I learned so much of them from a commercial perspective, also from obviously a personal thing. But for me, if we look out from a commercial side, as Gen X and baby boomers, we've missed the boat to a certain level with Gen Zs. And I think the expectation was that they would just follow the millennials and they'll come in every day. But you speak to your average Gen Z and he says, okay, when was the last time you went to a Pizza Express? When was the last time you went to a Pretzel or a Pizza Hut? And they'll just look at you baffled. And then their answer would probably be, with my mum and dad when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Answer to your question that you asked me is like, okay, what do Gen Zs want when it comes to hospitality? There is one business out there that has really, really nailed Gen Z interaction and building. And that business is Blank Street. Blank Street started off obviously very small, and most of your listeners will know their story. But what they really did so well is they understood who their core customer is, which is the Gen Z. So from their operations all the way through their equipment, their customer flow, their interactions, and obviously the marketing, social media, they built that whole business to cater for Gen Z. The entire business is set up. You go to a typical Blank Street in London, New York, vast majority will be Gen Z. But the beauty when it comes to hospitality is not their product, is the actual staff that they have employed. The staff they've employed are the opposite to the twin of their customer. So they are Gen Zs. So Gen Z all of a sudden is serving Gen Z a product that is appealed to Gen Z. And all of a sudden you've got a whole business that is built up for them. Blank Street are doing, for example, what Frankie and Benny's did back in the day, Chiquitos, Pizza Hut. Yeah. But we went through this lull of 15 years of confusion. And now the Gen Zs are dictating this. So to all the baby boomers and Gen Xs out there, I would absolutely pair up with Gen Zs because they are the make and break for businesses. Yeah. A lot of my clients I deal with now, we are focusing on Gen Zs and the future Alpha A's. I don't think we can ever write those guys off. No. Ever. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that the people that make decisions don't often don't start there. Yeah? They make other decisions. It's quite interesting. I went to a Blank Street Coffee, and it was not for me. That's for sure. And I don't know. I can't really come down to what it was. I just thought that was not for me. But I could see there's a lot of people in there, so it was somebody. Yeah, and it was Gen Z. I didn't know that story you just told, like how they built that around. And it gives totally sense now when I go back and think about it. It's Kensington, it's Blank Street, Kensington High Street, and I just had to sit for a moment and do something. I thought, that's a great place. And at that point, they were already big at that point, but it was not really on my radar, because that's not my generation. And I would prefer something else. That was where, and I could see this was an old Starbucks side,
Yeah.
So once that was the second or the third place outside home, and they did really well. So they, in principle, replacing what Starbucks did really well. They,
absolutely.
For our generation, Starbucks was a huge thing,
100%. 100%. And the same thing goes with your Carl Jr.'s, your Popeye Chicken, and your Wingstop, and other brands are popping up. Look, there are brands, that will suit people of certain ages. But I think if you look at the vast majority of hospitality, particularly the QSR franchising space, it is all gearing up for that generation. I come across some people that I speak to who are of a similar age to myself, who are writing off Gen Z, and they're still waving the flag of, no, we've got all these restaurants and we're going to fill them up and we're doing all these marketing promotions and so forth. And I was like, guys, I said, your customer, your Gen X and your baby boomers, they have moved on. They actually now like sitting at home watching Netflix and ordering a Deliveroo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of what most people are doing of a certain age. And I think it's acceptance. It's moving with the world. Evolution. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. But do you think the Gen Z then, just to come back to is hospitality important to them? Like being in a place.
Good question.
So you talk about, maybe that's what you talked about, like being in a place where you can recognize yourself and you feel safe. It's almost like hospitality as well. I guess that is actually the sense, and take people from feeling unsafe to. It's really interesting when one thing I hate, and I still hate that, and I work with the business I'm involved in now, and there will be people, if they listen to it, think, there he goes again. When people comes in the door, somebody has to approach them, because they are looking for something. They're not sure if they're in the right place. What's going on here? I've never been here before. Then it's your job to take them to safety. That's hospitality in my view. From unsafe to safe. And you can do that through a plate of food. You can do that. That's really the core of what hospitality means. And then you can put on delight and surprises, unreasonable hospitality and everything. But it's like when you feel safe, you are hospitable. But that was actually what it was in the old days when people was traveling the dangerous roads across Europe or wherever they were. They could stop somewhere and have a meal, and that was actually a little respite from feeling unsafe on the roads where there was robbers and gangs and what else there was on these roads that would jump out and kill you at every moment. So I don't know, actually, that's actually the job. And if that generation feels safe there, and then doesn't matter if they don't say the right thing or do the right little thing, because we always made it like a bit like a theater, hospitality. And I don't know, it might not be a theater. It might just be that thing to make people feel safe. I don't know. I
think it's a fantastic question, actually, Michael. What do...
Because there's not much communication with the customers in there.
Yes.
And that's why I think they might feel safe, because it's scary, when people communicate to me, not through my app.
But how are they communicating? So look, everybody likes a smile, everybody likes a hello, and everybody likes to be asked, how are you today? I think, yes, social interaction for a lot of people is extremely challenging. I think because we are in hospitality, we take it for granted. I get told off quite a few times by many people close to me, particularly my daughters and my girlfriend, that I talk too much because I just like talking to people. But that's just natural. That's a default switch in my brain. But I think if you can do the base and gauge the response, look, I think some people, when they come into establishments, They don't want to be spoken to. They've got probably a lot of things on their mind. They just want to sit down, have a quiet drink or a quiet lunch, meal, dinner, whatever, and off they go with zero. And I remember that as a waiter 35 years ago, speaking with some customers who did not want to interact, So I think some people do it, but it's more evident now.
Yeah.
I sit on the Lizzie line when I'm going back home, and 90% of the carriage, people's heads are just fixated to their smartphones. Yeah. No one is talking. And if somebody says hello, it's like, oh my God, like, why are you saying hello to me?
Are you crazy?
Yeah. But it's, again, we're living in this era. So, that, and again, it's an international thing. I've yet to see a country or a town or a city where nobody uses social media or stuck to their phones.
Yeah, on the phone while they cycle or whatever they do, yeah? Absolutely. I saw a couple today as we were cycling in here. I was thought, how the hell do you actually manage that bike, yeah?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I was in the metro coming back to my hotel from the airport last night in Copenhagen. And again, everybody on the train was just fixated on their phone. And I wasn't. I was just in this thing of like, I want to get to the hotel, have a shower and go to sleep. Because I had to meet you this morning. But again, 3:00 in the morning, I don't know what people were scrolling or doom scrolling, but we live in this era. So I think it's the ability to read people and, how they are. Some people want to be a little bit chatty, have a chit chat. But I don't think we should write off all Gen Zs that they don't want to interact or talk.
Interesting.
I think that's... I had a great one yesterday. I was boarding Ryanair at Stansted, and the two young girls at the gate who were scanning the boarding passes and the passports in, and they just looked so deflated. It was very hot, and they just wanted to go home and late and all the rest of it. And they were Gen Z. They must have been about 21, 22. And I was... I when I came my turn, I was like, hi, how are you today? And they just smiled. They were just so happy because every single customer I was watching didn't even acknowledge them, didn't even say, how are you, this and that. So sometimes, yes, it's nice to be asked, how are you? And they were Gen Z.
Yeah, and actually maybe hospitality is also about, asking, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't expect people don't want to talk, yeah? That's really interesting, yeah. That was a really good one.
Yeah.
Then we wanted to talk a little bit about, I haven't even put my eyes on time, but
there you go.
Here we go. We are full on.
Okay.
But let's do a segue into wrapping up. But I think there was a couple of things I think we need to talk about. We also talked a bit about, we said we will talk a bit about AI, but that also connects with this group of people. Yeah, they run around with the tool. Yeah, and I have a couple of them working for me, and it's really interesting to see how quick I can get stuff done when I asked them to work through cloud and said, build the system for me.
Yeah,
and actually, just me working with them, I get smarter, and I learn that's actually how they do everything. Yeah,
correct.
And then that comes to then when you run a business, what is your, AI can of course optimize your business, but actually who should do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It might not be you might be the architect, but you might need to get the Gen Z to do it for you if you really want to make it effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people saying AI is going to revolutionize hospitality, and I think it's going to revolutionize lots of things in the world.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to fix our sometimes fundamental issues in hospitality.
Correct.
And what is your view on that? Like, because lots of people talk about, all this automation, and almost soon you don't need to have anyone employed.
I think AI is a beautiful thing. I use that tool often. I definitely don't fully exploit it. I guess the type of stuff that I do and use it for, it fulfills my needs. I don't think AI could ever replace the true essence of hospitality, because hospitality is such a human thing, equivalent to the human touch, the feeling of love and to be loved. AI can never, ever replicate that. It can come close, and it's already proving that. I think AI as a tool in business is phenomenal. And, your listeners and yourself, Michael, I'm not going to sit here and teach everyone how to suck eggs, because we all know how amazing of a product it can be, for data and other elements of a business. But I think, is it a threat to hospitality? For a certain segment of the industry, yes. And I think we're already seeing that, particularly in the delivery aggregator model.
Yeah.
I think as a consumer, if you're a heavy user, then you're already probably not experiencing, and you probably will never experience, genuine hospitality through those platforms at all. However, if you're an advocate for popping into a coffee shop or a QSR or a restaurant, then the human will always be there. I checked into a hotel late last night, early this morning, and the hotel is completely AI driven. Yeah. So they requested me to install this app, which then unlocked the elevator, unlocked the room, told me where extra pillows were, and blah, 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 and passwords and Wi-Fi and everything like that. However, I needed to iron this shirt, which I'm wearing now.
You did a good job.
Thank you. Considering what it looked like out of my bag this morning. But the AI instructed me to go downstairs to the basement and use the ironing room, of which I had to go to the check-in desk and get the key to access that room, which meant I had to speak to a human. And in the world of hotels, as a hotelier, hospitality is your business. I mean, even further more than a restaurant. So there's an example of, yes, AI is great, but they will never, ever replace a human. So when people speak to me and they get worried about AI and say, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose my business because of AI, I'm the opposite. I'm like, first thing you need to do is make sure you've got a nice Gen Z workforce at a certain percentage. Use them to educate yourself in the skills that you need if you're completely disengaged with AI, and then embrace AI into your business.
Use it. Try it out.
Absolutely, 100%, but keep the human element. So I'll give you an example. I've got a partner in London who I'm helping scale at the moment. I give a shout out to Bakebird. As you know, you had Vimal on your podcast.
He did well.
I hope you're hearing this, Vimal. You've done exceptionally well. So there's a business, a growing chicken and fries business in London. When we were setting up their flagship site, we considered the customer journey. So we had 2 kiosks, touchscreen kiosks installed, but we also had a normal till installed. Okay, we didn't have to do that because our EPOS provider was quite happy just to set it up as a seamless kiosk operation. But we deliberately had a till. And the reason why we did that, because a till on a counter, almost people just radiate towards it. And I often see in that shop, when it's busy, people use the kiosk. Some people come in and they automatically see and they use it as well. But a lot of people actually walk up to the counter and they place an order old school way with someone, and they just have that interaction. For us, for that business in that location, because we've got a lot of office workers and students, we wanted to build up that loyalty. We couldn't do that with just kiosks.
You can do that when you're a known entity like McDonald's, yeah?
Correct. McDonald's, absolutely.
It's 100% transaction, yeah?
Exactly. McDonald's is, there is no hospitality. It's all transactional service. I mean, you could argue, Michael, do they ever have, hospitality? Bless them. They're trying very hard at the moment with all their human-led ads, not human-led, sorry, human-centric advertisements they're doing at the moment in the UK, where they're putting people first. However, I think as a deliberate move, absolutely, you should always have that human touch point to embrace that.
Interesting. And I actually think it becomes a commodity, hospitality, or compared to AI, where being human becomes a really strong commodity. Yeah, that's what you scale, the ability to build relationship. I know that you can maybe already feel. I have a bit with my chat, which I use, and he says, "Hi, Michael. Oh, you haven't written for the last 3 days. You want to work on your portfolio? Oh, did you remember you worked on the Maverick book, Maverick Leaders Know and Do? Do you want to work a bit on that?" So it's like almost like this. There is some kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But it's not a real relationship. And I think that's really where humans' job is going to come in. Yeah. Our ability to build relationship and actually have more time for that. That's really what I hope. Like, or maybe I'm not too much an optimist, but you have to. And I hope this tool will make the world better. We'll solve problems better and faster.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's also why I was in the G7 meeting. Yeah, all the big bosses for AI companies was there. So either they had to take over the world, or they were there to be regulated. Yeah, because that's probably the key thing that comes in here. But that's out of my hands. I don't know enough about that. What about? I want to finish on the state of hospitality.
Yep.
And you are very deeply ingrained in the UAE.
Okay.
And the UK, but we start with the UK because it feels like just one difficult story after that. And actually, there's some story comes out next week, Bill's, how they done that turnaround, and we talked a bit about that. That's a really great story, but he talked a bit about the markets in the UK has been chopped into three, and it's very visible who are failing hard, and he doesn't mention any names when you think that. He's just very rounded about there. And then there's the middle, this ongoing struggle. And then there's the one that came out of the middle. Or was already up there and stayed up there. The high performers. We all know about. Lang Street Coffee would probably be one of them. Bill's now back into that, in that arena. But there's a lot in the middle. The middle has become really big and the bottom is increasing and it's going very fast. And also sometimes it's not just because people are failing. It's just like, there's no more energy, independence. That there's no more energy, both money and time and so on. You have to close that business down. But what is your view of the state of the UK hospital? It feels like we are in a very difficult place. We even saw that Vincent came back to Leon to turn it around, and I think he's probably also got a bit of a shock on what. That's an invitation, Vincent. Maybe we should have a conversation about that. But he found it. He came in with a very big ambition about how he wanted to turn it back to the old Leon. But actually probably found out I actually need to reduce something to grow again.
Absolutely. I think let's start with the UK and then we can transition into the UAE. UK hospitality. Wow. I mean, Michael, it's changed so much to what I remember. Specifically over the past 15 years, there's been huge leaps. I think the biggest failures when it comes to these big established brands is what they failed to do is adapt to the world. I think for many years, a lot of these brands have just been riding on some kind of hope and glory for the future. That, they will fill the seats and people will still come in and, through marketing or whatever it is. And they actually fail to recognize what's actually happening on the battlefield. Because they've not been there. And I really, when I hear about these businesses, shutting shops and, your big brands like Pretzels and your Pizza Expresses and things like that, I really don't have any sympathy because for decades they sat on real estate that was just costing them hundreds or thousands of pounds a year in losses. I get access to, and I'm not going to name drop here, but I get access to quite a lot of property portfolio that companies that are, offloading their assets. And when I look at these rents that these companies have been paying, I'm flabbergasted. I'm like, what in the world made you think you could hang on to it? Even though they had break clauses and perhaps leases were expiring, just hoping that somehow, you're going to increase footfall and business and so forth. I see the cracks now. When I look at stuff like the Azuri Group, bringing in or investing into Dave's Hot Chicken, and you've got other groups, converting their estates into QSR sites and things like that. It's all a bit too late.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think a lot of these brands are to be blamed. I don't think they can sit back and keep hanging on about Brexit, about the pandemic, and about Gen Z, because that's pretty much all I hear. Is just that it's almost a blame game of those three elements. Then my question is, well, you failed to adopt. Your senior leadership and management team have been in the same jobs for 20 plus years, and you've never considered bringing in a newer generation to help you expedite the business or look at it in a different way. And I think a lot of that is to be pointed fingers within UK hospitality, absolutely, with the exception of Bills. And I'm going to give Tom another shout here. By the way, listeners, I've got no invested interest in Bills. This is purely, I admire what Tom's done. Bills went through a bit of a lull, it's fair to say, about 10 years ago.
I think he mentioned that as well on the show, yeah.
But he's just worked his magic, and he's actually understood his core customer. And the way he's done that is because it's feet on the ground. It's getting absolutely nosy in his business. And when I've met Tom a couple of times in the events that we usually meet up at, we had that discussion, and he's there talking to the Gen Zs. He's there talking to different parts of industry. If he's doing it, I am sure he's leading his team to do the same as well.
Yeah.
They're all not stuck in a little head office and they're all working behind computers and just reading what's on mainstream hospitality news feeds. It's all about that. It's being presence, in the business. So I think if some leadership in the UK were to be extremely present in their business and on the high street, and really interact with what's going on and really understand how those businesses are working, it would absolutely save UK hospitality. It really frustrates me. A lot of people are just blaming a lot of things. Yes, it's been tough. We can't ignore that. Yeah, Brexit and the pandemic really impacted UK hospitality. However, as a innovator and as an entrepreneur, there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and it's your job to, overcome the obstacle. Yeah, which in principle, external things are. It's out of your control, but you need to roll with them and find a way.
Yeah.
What about the UAE, which has been really impacted by the war between Iran and Israel and the US? What's happening there? Because that was that's the place you go. Yeah, that's where all the growth were 2 years ago, and you talked it about as well. I'm investing my time there. This is the next big thing. And then suddenly, overnight, there was war, and the whole thing changed.
It's, Michael, as you know, I'm split between London and Dubai. And as an expat of the UAE, I lived there for a number of years. It's unfortunate what happened in March, in that very fateful weekend when the US and Iran started firing towards each other, impacted the Gulf nations. Not their fault, but they were targeted. What happened? This is really interesting. I think the British media, generally the media in the West, portrayed Dubai to be completely war-torn, people leaving in their millions, and all these crazy stories coming out that, the Burj Khalifa was on fire and damaged, and the Palm was on fire and all that. Completely untrue. Completely untrue. But it's British media, and they've always been like that. The general census on the ground is, yes, the hoteliers particularly have taken a hit because tourism stopped overnight. And it stopped, yes, because of the conflict, but it also stopped because of government advisory notices to say do not travel to that area, and the insurance is not covered. Occupancy dipped from 85% during that time of the year. Bearing in mind it was pretty much peak tourist season, dropped all the way down to 5%.
Yeah.
Recovery has now increased for hotels. It's currently averaging around about 35%, which is really good. As of yesterday, the UK lifted its travel ban, so hopefully we'll get some influx of tourists coming in. Is Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and the greater UAE worried about recovery? Absolutely not. On the ground right now, it's business as usual. By default, the leadership of the UAE, and particularly the leadership of His Royal Highness Sheikh Rashid bin Al Maktoum, is outstanding, because what they've done is protected their business interests and protected their residents and citizens, giving them the assurity that business will be okay. And they have delivered on that with a lot of government incentives and so forth. Also, the type of person, the expat that lives in the UAE, and I'm talking about the ones that have been there for many, many years. By default, they are really headstrong. They're very, go, go, go. Very entrepreneurial, and they have found opportunities and ways to help sustain their business while they've had a dip. I've just come across a few stories where businesses have struggled, but I've yet to come across a story where restaurants have been closing down in their droves, or hotels have been closing down, or anything like that. So that is not happening at the moment. There will be a huge bounce back, and business will be back to normal. Dubai has suffered 3 dips in the past 20 years, and it has absolutely bounced back. Myself, yes, I was supposed to launch my new project, Hospitality Hatch Lab, which you're involved in as well, in Dubai, which is an accelerator program for SMEs in the Middle East. That was supposed to launch in April, but we've kind of sort of pushed it back for September launch, which is now going ahead with all other events and news, so forth. Yeah, which is amazing. So I think, look, UAE hospitality, generally, I'm probably less concerned about UAE hospitality than I am about the UK state.
Yeah.
So there is a stark contrast. But I'm quite confident about the UAE. Absolutely, yeah.
That's quite interesting as well, where the opposite of government. So it's not all in the government. It's like when everybody comes together, You're facing the obstacles together.
100%.
And of course, government could do some more in the UK, but that's like, you can't wait for that as an operator. But actually, it's also because I guess that hospitality is really a competitive edge to attract people to come to the UAE. If there were just like business to be done, people wouldn't come and live there and expat there. Yeah,
exactly, Michael. It's being decisive. The government there is decisive. They saw hotels were struggling, so what did they do? They waived visa renewal fees. They gave 6-month extensions. They they froze all rents for citizens and expats, including commercial rents and private rents, and a number of other incentives. And that was all executed within a couple of weeks.
So it's clarity, yeah.
Absolutely. So the assurity that your business is protected, because in their eyes, they've worked very hard for the past 60 years building up the UAE, and obviously Dubai is the crown or the jewel in the crown. And they want to protect that, and quite rightly. And it's the same with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait. So I think on this, it's the leadership. And you touched right now, the UK leadership. We as UK hospitality, we have been pressing the government to action our 20% VAT.
Yeah.
Tom Kerridge had to step in a few weeks ago, started this petition. I think it's sitting at 500,000 signatures at the moment. Why do we have to go down that route when the government should be, and they do have the ability to reduce that to help, because UK hospitality is a significant contribution to the UK GDP. It's very frustrating when you see some countries embracing hospitality and understanding how important that industry is to their own growth for the current and for the future. Whereas we're in the UK, we almost have to jump through so many loops. And by the time we get some acknowledgement, we have a new administration that comes in every 4 years. Yeah. So we're just on this constant cycle. So yes, it's a shame. It's a shame. I see both sides of the fence on that one. Opportunities are still great in the UAE, particularly in the other 6 Emirates. I know everybody focuses on Dubai, but places like Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Ain, Abu Dhabi, and Ajman are huge opportunities, and the rest of the GCC. So yes, absolutely. Speaking to my colleagues out there, they're all about growth and moving forward. In the UK, it's conversations I have is almost daily about rates and not being able to manage.
Struggle.
It's a struggle. It's a survival.
Survival.
It's real sad. Yeah.
What is the one thing you want to leave the listeners with as we finish off this conversation?
I think we've covered a lot of subjects today in a real candid, open fashion. As we always talk about, Michael, we're always bouncing off.
So now we've done that conversation, we can go on to the food.
Absolutely. I think you're getting hungry now, Michael. I can see that. I think what I'll leave with the listeners is that, hospitality is tough, particularly as a founder. But if your strategic vision is on point and you don't run away with your dream, you can make a real success of yourself. And embracing your self-discipline and ensuring that you follow the number one rule in business is to always cover your own ass. That's it. Number one rule. And once you do those things, I think you're on to a winner. And then more than anything, enjoy the ride. I think people are too fixated on the result, the result and the destination. But if you enjoy the ride, the byproduct is the success. So a lot of people forget the ride. So that's probably my final thoughts on there.
Oh well. With that said, we'll go out and enjoy the ride in Copenhagen hospitality. We have a couple more things in the program, before it's bedtime. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Copenhagen and doing the podcast.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was spontaneous, unscripted. So, thank you for the invitation. It's been really good. Really happy to be back on the show, and look forward to the next episode in a few years.
Yeah, power and energy, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And discipline.
Yeah, and discipline. Absolutely.